Boom! We are live with a live Q&A right about now. How's it going? Lee Hayward here, Friday, November 12th, for another Q&A. Hopefully this is coming through loud and clear and you can hear me and see me and all that good stuff. Let's see. How are things going in your neck of the woods? Is this coming through? I'm just going to stretch a bit to let a few people hop onto the video chat here today, the Q&A. And as you come on board, if you are catching this, let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me, if this is coming through loud and clear. By letting me, if you can hear me, just say, and you can see me, say loud and clear in the video chat there. If you could do that, I would greatly appreciate it, just to make sure that everything is working on my end. We've got Dan joining in. We've got Dario joining in. Loud and clear. Thumbs up. Good stuff. I'm assuming it's working. Good. I've got myself a cup of coffee today, because after I finish this chat, I'm actually going to have a go for a workout, and this is going to be my pre-workout of choice. So a little bit of a caffeine kick for the chat, and a little bit of caffeine kick to get a workout in afterwards. So how are things going? How are things going in your neck of the woods? Let me know where you're tuning in from and the way these chats work. First off, if you're new, I want to welcome you. It's always nice to have new people joining into these live video chats. But the way they work is I'm going to be hanging out here for the next hour-ish, thereabouts, depending on how many questions we get and how chatty I feel, for the next hour-ish till the coffee's gone, and answering any questions or topics of discussion that you may have when it comes to fitness and nutrition, any specific challenges you're dealing with when it comes to building muscle or losing fat, anything along those lines. Feel free to type those questions or topics of discussion into our chat window, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out over the course of our chat. If I can help you, I'll let you know, and if not, then I'll let you know that as well, right? I don't claim to have all the answers or know it all, but I'll do my darndest to point you in the right direction. And that's what this is all about. So we have several people joining in. There's lots of people coming on board right now. We've got Neil joining in from the Philippines. We've got Saksham, I think that's how I pronounce your name, joining in. Steamers joining in. We have Amy joining in. Welcome. How's things going? All right, good stuff. All right, one thing that I want to address now, and this is kind of an appropriate topic, and one that I was actually chatting with some of my coaching students today. I was actually doing some one-on-one coaching calls with some of the guys who are going through the Muscle After 40 Blueprint program. And we're heading into the holiday season, right? The danger zone for many of us. This is the time of year when most people say, screw it when it comes to their health and fitness. And they say, you know what, I'm just going to get caught up with all the rigmarole, the holiday meals and stuff like that, and the busyness, and the weather's getting colder, so I don't want to be getting outside and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And then January is going to roll around, and hey, I'm going to get back on track on January. And that's a common theme for a lot of people, especially this time of year. And it's a danger zone. Like, the average weight gain over the holidays is 5 to 10 pounds or more, somewhere in that range. Like, most people end up putting on a few pounds of blubber, a few pounds of squish over the next couple months, all due to, it's not that it's basically a mindset shift. That's really what it is. That's all it is. It's a mindset shift. And what I want to address now is some strategies on how you can overcome that and actually still enjoy the holidays and not become a victim to putting on that 5 to 10 pounds of stubborn fat, when what most people do is they just give in to that, whereas you really don't have to. You can make some simple changes and just plan ahead and still enjoy your holiday meals, still enjoy the celebrations and everything else without feeling deprived or anything of that nature, and still make progress. And this is where I keep saying good enough and good enough consistently. Right? You've heard me say this before, and I keep referring to this. It's all about being good enough consistently, and having more good days than bad, so that you're moving in the right direction towards reaching your fitness and fat loss goals. And a prime example, like, I know in the US, we've got Thanksgiving coming up. Here in Canada, we've already had our Thanksgiving. Canada has their Thanksgiving in October. US has it in November. Same holiday, same idea. Just, it's for whatever reason, we have it a month earlier in Canada. And of course, I know over in Europe, they don't have a Thanksgiving, right? That's a New World holiday, right? You know, the North American holiday. But here we have a Thanksgiving, and it's kind of the start of things going off the rails for a lot of Americans, right? And I know we have a lot of Americans tuning into this video chat today, so I just want to address it. And it usually starts like the Thanksgiving holiday, and then of course you have the Christmas parties and all that stuff, and then of course you have Christmas Eve and Christmas, and then the New Year's celebrations. And a lot of people use these holidays as an excuse to just let everything go to crap when it comes to their fitness and nutrition, and say, yeah, I'll start again on January, you know, the January 1st, that's it. The diet starts and I'll lose all the weight then. But in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy myself. And the reality is that doesn't work, because you could set yourself back and do so much damage, and you can't just start again in January and think that, hey, I'm going to just hardcore diet it out for a few weeks or something like that and lose all the weight. It has to be a lifestyle shift. You have to be able to incorporate holidays and social events and all that into your plan and still make it work. So this is how I'm going to handle it, and this is how I actually recommended my coaching students to handle it as well. When you know you have something coming up, and I'm going to use Thanksgiving as an example, you know Thanksgiving is coming up. In the days leading up to that, you could purposely just scale back your calories a little tiny bit. It doesn't have to be crazy, it doesn't have to be starvation or nothing, but just purposely scale back the calories a little bit, cut back on the portions, maybe even bump up your exercise a little bit. You know, add in some extra cardio sessions to create more of a calorie deficit to allow room for those extra calories that you're going to consume on Thanksgiving. And then on Thanksgiving, when the day rolls around, I mean, go out, enjoy the dinner with your family and friends, you know, and savor it all and take it all in. Enjoy the main course, enjoy the dessert, enjoy everything that it has to offer. And then afterwards, just get back on track for your very next meal, or the very least, the very next day. Don't let it spiral out of control to this, oh, I'm going to start again on Monday type thing, or I'm going to start again in the new year type thing, and let the whole thing just derail off course. Like, if you get off track, enjoy it, and don't beat yourself up over it. Totally enjoy it, but then get back on track for your very next meal, or at least the very next day. Don't let it spiral out of control. And this is a common thing that a lot of people go through. Like, prime example here, it's a Friday evening right now, and I know a lot of people, they, after all week at work, you know, they probably say, hey, I want to have some sort of cheat, whatever, you know. So maybe they do have something, like they might have been eating clean and healthy all week long, and then Friday rolls around and they want to have some not so good food. And then because they had some not so good food on Friday, instead of getting back on track for their very next meal or the very next day, they say, well, I blew it on Friday, just as well that, you know, it's gone now. Like the diet's gone out the window. Hey, Saturday, I'm going to eat like crap. Sunday, I'm going to eat like crap. And I'm going to get back on track on Monday. And instead of just enjoying that one cheat meal or whatever on Friday, they end up turning it into a big old weekend long binge. And they put on so much extra body fat in that process because they just let themselves go. Whereas if you just enjoy the one meal and get back on track for your very next one, you still get to satisfy the cravings, but not cause a lot of damage in the meantime. Because once you've satisfied the cravings, continuing to just prolong the binge, like if you have a binge or a cheat, I mean, stretching that out over the course of the weekend doesn't make it better. Like, it doesn't get better the more you eat. In fact, it kind of makes it feel worse. Like, you eat more and you feel even heavier and sluggish and stuff like that, and you just kind of like, blah. Like, once you satisfy the craving, like, forget about it, move on, and get back on track for the very next meal or the very next day. And I mean, it sounds so simple, but once you make that part of your lifestyle and you start to live it and see the results from that, then you realize, you know what? I can still have my cake and eat it too and make progress. And that's what it's all about, because it's not about perfection. It's just about being good enough consistently, and making more good choices over the course of the week than poor choices, so that we're tipping the scale in favor of progress. And in this case, I'm referring to fat loss progress. But I mean, that's what it's all about. It's not about this perfection approach where, oh, I'm not allowed to cheat. I'm not allowed to have any junk food. I'm not allowed to do this. I'm not allowed to have that. And then having this extreme all or nothing approach. And I mean, that's one of the biggest drawbacks that I find a lot of people falling into. And I'm guilty of it. I'm totally guilty of it. Back when I was competing in bodybuilding, I fell for that all or nothing mindset, where I wouldn't allow myself to eat out in a restaurant. I wouldn't go to a family dinner. I wouldn't have any type of social interaction while I was in my contest prep because I didn't want to derail my training and all this kind of crap. I mean, I was so like focused in my little bubble with my blinders on that I would go for months on end, you know, just the boiled chicken and broccoli, 2 hours of cardio a day, 6 days a week in the gym, the whole eat, sleep, train, repeat mantra BS. And I mean, yeah, that works. Don't get me wrong. It does work, but it's not sustainable and it's not enjoyable and it's fueled by willpower. And sooner or later, you're going to get to the point where you just can't stand that anymore and you say, screw it, it's not worth it anymore. And then you go off the rails and then you start to binge on all the food you were craving. And once that happens, then that's when things can really start to slide off the slippery slope. But if you have it built into the plan where you allow yourself little bits of indulgence throughout the program, but not so much that it derails everything. So you have a cheat meal here and there and you say, okay, I enjoyed it, got the cravings out of my system. Now I'm going to get back on track for the next meal and move on. It allows you to keep that under control so it doesn't build. And that's one of the biggest problems when people try to go on these all or nothing extreme approaches is the cravings build and they build and they build. And eventually they get to the point where it's like a pressure cooker, right? The pressure builds, and the top blows off. Right? You can't sustain it, right? You can't sustain it. But if we have it set up so you're never letting things get out of control, right? Once the pressure of the cravings start to build, you release it a little bit. You satisfy those cravings, and then you get back on track. Satisfy them frequently versus trying to have these big old gaps where you're trying to be perfect and so super strict, right? Forget the perfection, forget the all or nothing, and just realize it has to be good enough and good enough consistently, and you can still make this work. And once you get this and grasp it, and this is the whole concept we cover in the Muscle After 40 Blueprint, once this becomes part of your day-to-day lifestyle, it's like it's a game changer, and it's like just a weight lifted off your shoulders. It really is. So, I mean, that's how I'm going to be dealing with the holidays. I'm going to enjoy myself for Christmas parties and social dinners and, you know, family get-togethers and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just going to make it work because, one, as soon as that meal is over, get back on track for the very next meal. But even in the days leading up to it, you can purposely create a little bit of a bigger calorie deficit by scaling back your food intake and bumping up your activity level just to make room for those extra calories that you know you're going to be eating and know you're going to be enjoying on those holidays, but still make it work. And the biggest thing we need to realize is we're approaching the holidays. It's not holly months. Right? It doesn't mean you have to eat like a pig all November and all December and heck, even all of January. It's holidays, not holly months. Big difference, right? Enjoy the day, but get back on track and don't let it derail your entire month. So anyway, I just wanted to share that because it was a common conversation that I was having today, and I figured it might help some people who are planning on enjoying the Thanksgiving meals and the holiday meals and all that, and do so without being that awkward guy who's trying to be on a diet during the holidays, right? Because, I mean, nobody likes to be that guy who shows up at Thanksgiving dinner and say, well, I'm not allowed to eat that because it doesn't fit my macros and it doesn't fit my diet plan. And coach said I'm not allowed to eat this and blah, blah, blah. Like, don't be that guy who's always on a diet. Like, enjoy your meal, but get back on track for the very next one afterwards, right? And that allows you to be social and still make progress at the same time. That's a sustainable approach. All right, who do we got joining in? We got a lot of people joining in now. Excellent. We got Paul Miller joining in. Paul's a superstar over there on the Muscle After 40 VIP coaching program. Got Ruel joining in as well. Great to see you guys. Jesse's joining in. Jerry's joining in. Sack Shams joining in. Awesome. Good stuff. All right, let's see. We got any questions here? And if you do have questions, feel free to type them into the chat window, right? For those of you who are just joining us right now, this is what it's all about. It's a live Q&A. Steamer saying, I'm training 6 days a week, push-pull legs, but not growing as fast as my friends. I know genetics play a huge role, but I feel like my genetics are either super bad or I'm doing something wrong. All right. There's a lot of variables there that I mean, one, as far as growing's concerned, the biggest variable that's going to determine whether you gain weight, lose weight, or maintain weight, and I'm assuming when you say growing, you're trying to gain muscular body weight. The biggest variable there is not the workouts. It's not the 6 days a week in the gym. It's your nutrition. if you're in a calorie surplus and you're eating the right foods and the right ratios to fuel muscle growth, that's what's required. Like you could be training 6 days a week, but if you're not fueling properly, you're not going to gain. So, I mean, that's the biggest variable right there. But there's other variables as well. I mean, one, I need to know like your training experience, your age, your fitness level, all this kind of stuff plays a huge role. But I'm just going to kind of like answer the question as a generic question. First off, 6 days a week is not the ideal schedule for growth. You do not grow when you're in the gym working out. You grow when you're resting and recovering in between your workouts. And I can relate to this because back in my early days, I used to be, work out every day, right? That was the mantra. Hey, like if you work out every day, you're going to grow. And that's the fastest way to make gains is you got to work out every day. And I used to try and do that. And I never made very good gains trying to work out every day. Once I understood this and I started, getting educated from some of my coaches and mentors, I actually cut back my training to every other day or 3 days a week. So, I mean, both are very similar. Like every other day means that 1 week you're going to have 3 workouts, the next week you're going to have 4, right? So whether you have it set up so it's just literally every other day, or you have it set up like it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or something like that, both are basically the same as far as real world progress. But set it up so that you have a day of rest in between each workout. Like that's what I'm getting at. Have a day of rest in between each workout. So you break down and stimulate muscle while you're in the gym, and then you have a full 48 hours of rest, recovery, and growth before your next workout. And by doing that, you will actually make faster gains because, one, you'll be approaching your workouts recovered, refreshed. Your glycogen levels will be topped up. Your muscles will be recovered. Your central nervous system will be recovered. You'll be able to train harder and heavier and push yourself more when you actually work out. Whereas if you train every single day, you never fully recover between sessions. And you're always like the battery's half drained all the time. Like it never fully recharges in between training sessions. So, I mean, yeah, you're pushing yourself and you're doing a lot of volume, but it's not the quality. It's not the same intensity that would be required to really maximize muscle gains and muscle growth. And I find that if you scale back to every other day, that will probably, for most people, I mean, with very few exceptions, you'll make better muscle gains by training every other day versus training 6+ days a week. So that's one thing that I would suggest right there. And of course, the nutrition is another huge role. So, I mean, like if you need some help with this, you want to kind of elaborate on it in a bit more detail, because again, there's a lot of variables here that are being left out. I mean, feel free to reach out to me. Right? You can send me a message through Facebook, or you can send me an email. In the description of this video, I have my email address there, so you can reach out to me. It's leeh@leehayward.com. But, feel free to reach out to me if you want some help with this. But, just that one thing alone, I'm seeing 6 days a week is a red flag right there. All right, I'd say cut it back 3 days a week, or at most 2 days on, 1 day off. All right, that's what I would recommend if your goal is maximum muscle growth. Any more than that, and you're not allowing adequate recovery time for rest, recovery, and growth. And this is kind of universal across the board. Like you look at power athletes, like power lifters and strongman and people like that who are trying to train to build, 3 or 4 days a week is usually what they do. The only people who train more often than that are people who are trying to maximize calorie burning and get lean. And so sometimes you'll see like a pre-contest bodybuilder may do 6 days a week, but they're not growing during that phase. They're just burning body fat, burning calories, and they're doing all that volume of workout to simply try and increase their calorie expenditure so that they can tap into burning stored body fat for fuel. But they're not making gains leading up to a contest, especially in the final weeks leading up to a show, right? They're basically just trying to maintain as much muscle as they can while shedding off all their excess body fat. But if your main goal is growing, you need to take a different approach. And it's less time in the gym, but more quality time. So fewer workouts, but really making sure that you're getting the most out of those workouts. Let's see what else we have. We have Neil is joining in. Says, good morning. In our country, vaccines became mandatory, and I would like to know if it is ideal to work out after getting shot by the vaccines, provided there are no side effects. Great question. Great question, because it's something that we have here in Canada as well. In Canada, the COVID vaccines are mandatory if you want to live a normal life, meaning go to the gym, go to a restaurant, go anywhere where there's other social beings doing anything. You have to be vaccinated. So I recently got vaccinated as well. And when I was talking to the doctor about this, I asked the doctor the exact same question. I said, okay, like, how does this affect exercise? And the doctor said, basically, if you're feeling up to it, you can exercise. Now, you have to just realize within probably 48 hours after the vaccine, you may have some cold or flu-like symptoms. You may have a bit of a stuffy nose. You may feel a little bit lethargic. You may feel a few aches or pains or whatever. And obviously, if you're not feeling 100%, then don't push it 100%. You know, that would be a day for maybe a low intensity workout or just some active recovery stuff. But in my case, I did some low intensity exercise. Like I did some cardio, after the vaccines, but I didn't go in there and push it hard with, like high intensity weight training workout or anything like that. So, I mean, you can still exercise, but don't push it 100%. Like give yourself a few days to let your body adapt and build up your immune system to it. But you should be good to go. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to like lay in bed and totally inactive, but just don't push it 100%. Like you wouldn't be going in and testing your 1 rep max bench press the day after getting your COVID vaccine or anything like that, right? Give yourself a little bit of time to rest and recover, but it's not a big deal either way, right? It's not going to set you back. What else we got there? We have Matrix Power Deluxe. Gotta love that. How much potassium must an athlete intake, and how much is the upper limit? I honestly do not measure potassium intake. Like I'm not there with a calculator and the calorie nutrition counter books, weighing and measuring and crunching the potassium numbers. But I know just from the food choices I eat, I'm eating a lot of potassium because I'm eating natural unprocessed foods. Your fruits and your veggies and all this stuff are high sources of natural potassium. And I make sure that I get adequate potassium from those foods. But honestly, I do not have the numbers, I don't crunch my numbers particularly. As far as what is the ideal intake, I mean, it's really going to depend on your activity level, how much fluid you're consuming and all that. Cause like potassium and sodium kind of go hand in hand. Like you want to have them in balance, right? Like, cause if these are like the electrolytes that your body utilizes when you're working out and you're sweating. I mean, you're going to be losing sodium, you're going to be losing potassium, you're going to be losing magnesium as well. So, I mean, you want to make sure that you're replenishing them. But honestly, I don't have hard set numbers for you. But just a second now, I actually have a PDF that I put together that covers vitamin and mineral intake for athletes. And I'm just going to pop that up really quick here now. In fact, if you would like a copy of this, feel free to drop me an email. For those of you watching this, I have a PDF guide. It's called Vitamin and Mineral Intake for Athletes. And what it is, it's a PDF guide that shows all the different food sources for the vitamins and minerals. So it goes over all the major vitamins and minerals as well as electrolytes. And then it covers the purpose of each one, and it also covers how you can get these from your diet. So not necessarily relying on supplementation, but how you can get them from the foods you eat. So if you would like a copy of that, feel free to message me, whether you Facebook message me or email me. Just say, you can put in the subject vitamin and mineral PDF, and I'll literally send you a copy of that. Right? Just let me know that you're actually watching this. Okay, potassium, right? Ideally, you want to shoot for about 5,000 milligrams per day as an athlete, right? That's now, again, honestly, I'm not measuring it, right? But the best sources of dietary potassium, all fruits and vegetables. So, I mean, if you're eating lots of fruits and vegetables, which I personally am, like I eat fruits and veg with every single meal. So just by doing that alone, I know, okay, like you're covering a lot of the basics when it comes to vitamins and minerals and enzymes and all this kind of stuff. Is if you're eating fruits and veg with every single meal, then you got a lot of your bases covered, and you don't need to be, strict and breaking out the calculator and crunching it all. But foods that are especially high in potassium, any green veggies, especially like spinach, great ones. Potatoes are a great source of potassium. Potatoes and sweet potatoes, especially if they have the skin left on. Squash, celery, avocados, bananas, oranges, cantaloupes, apricots, tomatoes. You'll even get it from meat and poultry and fish. That's also good sources of potassium. Stuff like beef and lamb, chicken, salmon, tuna. You'll get potassium in nuts, like almonds and peanuts. They're high in potassium. And even dairy products are a good source of potassium. So, I mean, if you're eating a well-balanced diet, fruits and veg and meats and dairy and all, like, potassium's not going to be an issue. It really isn't. So, I mean, like, that's what you really need to focus on. As long as you're eating a natural unprocessed diet, your potassium needs are going to be covered. But if you would like to get a copy of that PDF, send me a message. Send me a message through Facebook or send me an email, and I'll be happy to send it over to you. Free of charge, as a gift from yours truly. All right, moving on. Who else we got there? We have YT saying, are isolations needed to build muscle, or are basic compounds like squats and benches and deadlifts and pull-ups and presses sufficient to build muscle? First off, anything you do consistently is going to help you to build muscle. So anything is better than nothing, right? I mean, like doing compound lifts versus sitting on your duff and doing nothing. Obviously, you're going to build more muscle with the compound lifts. But to maximize muscle growth, I personally think isolation exercises have their place. And it's really good for balancing out your physique. So what you'll find is if you start off with the basics, your benches, your squats, and your deadlifts and rows and presses and all that stuff, yes, you can build a great foundation, but eventually you're going to find like maybe certain areas lag behind others, or you may have some gaps. Like, for example, maybe your rear delts and upper back are lagging behind, or maybe your quadriceps, are lagging behind. You want more fullness in the, in the teardrop or in the outer sweep, or maybe, you want to focus on other areas, like the calves or the biceps or what, blah, blah, blah. All this, like, you'll find that there's going to be areas in your body that are not responding as well. And even if you have a good structured workout program, this is going to happen to everybody. Certain muscle groups are going to respond better than others. And in order to really fill in those gaps, that's where isolation work can come into play. So if you have any specific areas that need extra work, adding in extra work in the form of isolation exercises, as well as compound exercises to those areas, can really help. But I definitely find that I make better gains and better quality muscle development when I include both compound as well as isolation exercises. And there's multiple ways of going about it. Like, it really depends on you, your situation, what it is you're trying to focus on. But like, one thing that I found that works really well, especially for stubborn body parts, is you can even pre-exhaust a muscle group with isolation exercises first and then do the compound exercises afterwards. So, prime example, let's just say you find like you're training your chest with bench presses, and even though you're doing the bench press, you really don't feel your chest activating. Well, maybe if you pre-exhausted your chest with cable crossovers or pec deck flies first and then did your bench press, now, because you pre-exhausted the muscle with the isolation, you can really feel it working even more with the compound exercise. Or maybe like you're doing squats and you don't really feel your quads when you do squats. But if you isolated it first with some leg extensions and then did your squats, then probably you get a lot more muscle activation in the quads. So there's all kinds of ways to incorporate these. But I definitely feel that isolation exercises have their place, and it's part of a well-balanced workout routine. So that's why I like to do a well-balanced routine that includes compounds as well as isolation. Daniel saying, Lee, can you give a breakdown of carb cycling? When should you have high carbs, low carbs? Is it a good sustainable diet, and does it lead to results? All right, there's different theories on carb cycling, and it really depends on why you want to use carb cycling in the first place, and do you even need it? I mean, it's an advanced dietary strategy. That's what it is. Carb cycling is just basically an advanced strategy, and the idea behind it is you're basically combining a bulking and cutting phase within the course of a week. So like some people go on, if you follow the old school bodybuilding approach, right? You got your off-season bulking, your pre-contest cutting and stuff. Basically with carb cycling, you're condensing that into the course of a week. That's what it is. And the idea behind it is it helps to keep your metabolism higher and ideally prevent muscle loss while burning body fat. That's the idea behind it. Now, is it critical? Like, do you need to follow that? Or can you just follow a well-balanced calorie-controlled diet? I mean, it all works as long as you're consistent. But again, I have utilized carb cycling, and I've done so with success. And I've also utilized just a well-balanced calorie-controlled diet and done so with success. Like for my most recent bodybuilding show, I competed at our Newfoundland Provincials back here in July. And I didn't follow any carb cycling. I just, kept the calories in check, stayed consistent, calories, making sure I was in a calorie deficit, doing regular cardio. And I just basically just dieted right up to the show. And I find that worked really well. I got my best contest condition as far as low body fat and thin skin. Like I got as lean as I've ever did before, and probably even my leanest condition ever. And I didn't incorporate any carb cycling. So, I mean, I found that worked. But in the past, I used to do carb cycling. And again, it's just a different way of going about it. I'm not saying that it's right, wrong, good, or bad. It's just another strategy, another tool in the toolbox, if you will. But this is how I would go about it for fat loss. You start off 2 high carb days. And when I say high carb, it's also a calorie surplus. So you're eating over and above maintenance calories on the high carb days. And ideally, you want to have carbohydrates with every meal, right? So if you're having, your breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks, you're going to have carbohydrates with all those meals, and you're going to be in a calorie surplus at the end of the day. Do that for 2 days. Then you're going to have 2 medium carb days. And for these, basically, you're going to be in a slight calorie deficit. And ideally, you're only going to have carbohydrates probably like with breakfast and post-workout. So, and then the rest of the meals throughout the day will be low carbs. You have protein and veggies and some healthy fat. And the idea there is that would be your average diet day, if you will, right? You're going to be in a calorie deficit, and you're going to just have carbohydrates, breakfast, and post-workout. Then on the low carb days, this is where you would literally have no complex carbohydrates whatsoever. It's just going to be protein, veggies, and some healthy fats. And you would be in an aggressive calorie deficit on those days. And this is where you're basically depleting your glycogen stores, because you still keep your activity levels high. So you burn through your glycogen stores. And then in doing so, you're also going to accelerate fat burning. So the low carb days are going to be the hardest, meaning that you're going to feel the hungriest and the most depleted and deprived and everything else. But it's only for a couple days before you get back to high carb dieting again. So generally how it works, if you want to fit it in the course of a week, you would probably do, and again, you can manipulate the days based on your own specific goals, but generally you'd have 2 high carb, 2 medium, 2 low. Now, if your main goal is aggressive fat loss, I would stretch that out and have 2 high, 2 medium, and 3 low. So you're actually spending more time in that aggressive low calorie phase for fat loss. If your goal is body recomposition, where you want a kind of a balance of building muscle and losing fat, then I'd probably have 2 high, 3 medium, and 2 low. So most of your time is in that medium phase where it's a slight calorie deficit, but not the extreme one or the other. And then if you're trying to do this for lean gains, then you could have 3 high carb days. So you're having more time in the calorie surplus, 2 medium, 2 low. And that's basically the structure. You would go through the high, medium, low, high, medium, low. And the idea, again, is you're filling up your glycogen stores and in a calorie surplus. So you're in a growth phase during the high days. Medium, you're in a slight deficit. And then in the low, you're in an aggressive deficit. And then that kind of sets you up for the rebound when you come back to the high again. So, I mean, when you come back there, you'll refill your glycogen stores. It's almost like carb loading. That's what it feels like. So, I mean, you'll replenish your glycogen stores, have this little anabolic burst, because, I mean, you've got all the water and nutrients being pulled back into the muscles, and you'll feel fuller and stronger. And ideally, if you want to maximize it, during your high carb days, that's when you would train your stubborn body parts. So if there's any muscle groups that are lagging behind and you really want to prioritize them, make sure to get those workouts in on the high carb days so you can take advantage of that extra glycogen that you have in your system, so that you're getting better workouts, better muscle pumps, more strength and energy. So that would be ideal. And then, of course, your stronger body parts that don't need as much emphasis, you would train those on the low carb days. So that's a general overview of carb cycling. Again, it's not the end all be all. Like some people preach it as like this magical formula or whatever. Like the magical formula is consistency. Like whatever you do consistently is going to work. But this is just another tool in the toolbox. Like I say, I've used it with success. I've had some of my coaching students use it with success. But quite honestly, for most of the time, I don't bother with it. I just focus on, a sustainable eating plan day after day, because I don't want to have that whole, oh, this is my high carb day, this is my medium carb day. Like it takes a bit of thought process and planning and everything else. Whereas I just like to have a sustainable, enjoyable day where I eat a comfortable amount every day. I mean, I find that is the most easy and sustainable for me. And I mean, obviously everybody's different, but that's the general overview of it. What else we got there? Dario's saying, I'll be having a large salad with chicken before heading to a birthday party tonight, so I don't overdo it on the junk food intake. All right, that's a good strategy as well. Filling up on the protein and veg before you have the not so good food. That's a strategy that I always use as well. You've probably heard me mention this in other videos or chats before. I mean, that's if you're going to indulge in the junk, hey, by all means, indulge in the junk. But don't start eating junk when you're starving and famished. Pre-fill your belly on some protein and veg first to take the edge off your hunger. And then you can satisfy your appetite and still get the cravings of the junk food with much smaller amounts. So like in Dario's case, I mean, he's got his belly pre-filled with chicken and veg. Then if he goes to a birthday party and he has some cake or whatever, he's going to be able to eat much less and still have his belly full, still have his cake and eat it too, but not do as much damage as if he went there totally famished and then started slamming back, pizza and birthday cake and whatever other junk they have at birthday parties. I don't know what it is about birthday parties, but like almost every party I go to, it's always pizza and birthday cake. That's kind of the common menu items of birthday parties. What else we got there? Let's see. Matthew is joining in. Thanks for sharing about the holidays and allowing for cheat days. I got a meal plan earlier this year, and the stress of the all or nothing approach hurt everything else. I totally hear you there, my friend. Like the problem with all or nothing is it works when you're all in, but it's not sustainable. And that's where it's confusing or it's deceiving, because you'll hear people like you go in on social media and you look at following different groups. Like there's a group that I participate on. It's called the Dad Bod Transformation Group over on Facebook. Massive group. And a lot of the people in there are following extreme diet approaches. Like, so you get guys who are like, they're overweight, they're out of shape, and they finally hit their rock bottom threshold, or like, no more, that's it, I got to make a change. And then they'll go on some extreme approach. Like, I'm going on some low carb, ketogenic, intermittent fasting, starvation, blah, blah, blah diet plan. And the problem is it works. And what I mean by that, yes, it works. Like anytime you create a drastic calorie restriction, you're going to lose weight, right? I mean, you're going to lose weight. That's inevitable. But like, how long can you deprive yourself before the hunger and the cravings and the feelings of deprivation start to creep in? Probably not very long. Like most people, after a week or two of dieting, like following that very low carb, very low calorie, restrictive approach, they may get 1, 2, 3 weeks in, and then like next thing you know, like the temptations and the cravings and everything else start to kick in. And now they're relying on willpower. And to go beyond that phase, like they're kind of gritting their teeth and just putting on the blinders and suffering it out. And how long you go from that point on depends on how much personal willpower you have. If you have a lot of willpower, I mean, you might be able to suffer it out for a few months or more. If you don't have much willpower, then you're going to give up after a week or two of feeling hungry. You're going to say, screw this diet crap. I can't stand it anymore. And you're going to start going back, binge eating on, whatever it is that you're craving, and go back to your old habits. But even if you have a lot of willpower, time will beat you down. Like willpower is not an endless resource, right? It's not unlimited. It's a very finite resource, and it's the most valuable resource you have. So use it wisely, because if you burn it out by suffering it out on some crazy extreme diet, which leaves you hungry and deprived all the time, It's only a matter of time before even the most disciplined person gets to the point where they say, I can't take this anymore. Screw it. I don't care. And they go back to their old habits. And this was me. Like back when I was competing in bodybuilding, I went through this. Back in my early days of competitive bodybuilding, I used to go through this year after year after year. Right? I did it for over 16 years. Right? I went through this whole yo-yo diet phase. And the way it worked is I would have the short-term goal of getting ready for a competition. So whatever the deadline of the show was, I had it set up there where I would put the blinders on, go on the boiled chicken and broccoli, 2 hours of cardio days, working out every day in the gym with weight training, and basically burning the candle at both ends. And yes, it worked. But as the contest got closer, I mean, it was harder and harder. And I was just literally relying on willpower, just knowing that, hey, I want to get in my best shape so I don't make a fool of myself on stage in front of an auditorium of spectators, a panel of judges and friends and family and fellow competitors and everything else. That's a big motivating factor, knowing that you're going to be putting yourself on the line and people are going to be judging you, like not to make a fool of yourself, right? Like that's a big motivating factor. So that's why you see so many people who compete in bodybuilding shows, they get in really good shape. Like as far as success goes, competitive physique athletes, whether it's bodybuilders or fitness models or whatever, in the short term, they're the most successful of any dieter on the planet. Like they will get results above and beyond everybody else. But then once the contest is over, this is the dirty little secret of bodybuilding that nobody likes to talk about. Once the contest is over and the pictures are taken and the placings are announced and the pressure is off, then what? Like, okay, I went through that whole contest thing. I got in shape. I got the six-pack abs and I got the photo shoot done and everything else. Now what? Most people go back to their old habits and then end up regaining the weight again. And that's the dirty little secret of bodybuilding. And I see it over and over and over again. And I was guilty of it myself. Right? I mean, back in the day, my weight used to fluctuate up and down upwards of 40 plus pounds from off season to pre-contest. And then in the off season, I'd be justifying saying, well, I'm bulking up, right? Off season bulk. But in reality, it was just an excuse to get fat, and it never actually made any progress because once I went through the next cut and bulk phase and all this, I was always the same weight over and over again. So I'd be ballooning up, putting on all this body fat and then dieting it all off again, only to look the same. And in fact, it probably even wasn't looking the same because each time you balloon up and diet down, you're stretching your skin and you're kind of ruining the quality of your physique. I would have been much better off staying lean and making slow, lean gains versus this balloon up and diet down, balloon up, diet down over and over again. So like I say, if I have a time machine, if I ever find one and I could go back in time, I would have a good heart conversation with the young Lee Hayward and tell him, do not bulk up in the off season. Like, do not let yourself become a fat slob in the off season and trying to justify it by telling everybody you're trying to get bigger for next year's competition or any of that crap, because it's just setting you up for disaster, right? It's not helping. I would have stayed lean and focused on making lean quality gains over the long term versus this bulk cut BS. But anyway, that's a side rant there. What the heck were we talking about? Okay, all or nothing approach. That's where it was. That was Matthew's question about the all or nothing approach. All right. Ruel is joining in saying, can you give us an example of a time where you or a student had life legitimately get in the way of your rate of consistency, and how did you fit in activity? What was the minimum effective dose? Perfect question. Okay, I understand where you're coming from. All right. Life is getting in the way you going to the gym, right? And being consistent. How do you make it work? And what's the minimum effective dose? Forget the perfection. Like literally, don't even, you're overthinking it just by asking that alone. Like forget perfection and focus on progress. Something is better than nothing. I'm going to repeat that. Something is better than nothing. And how do you make this work is very simple. You let go of structured workouts and thinking that I have to go to the gym for an hour or 2 hours or any of this stuff, or I have to do cardio for 45 minutes, or like let go of all these pre-existing thoughts in your mind and just think like, how can I make the best of the moment right now? And how I did this is a prime example. Like after my son was born and I really let myself go and I got the quote unquote dad bod, I was too physically and mentally exhausted to have a structured workout program because I wasn't sleeping properly throughout the night. And of course, when you got a newborn baby, you're not the priority, right? Everything is related to like, okay, what does the baby need? We got to take care of the baby's responsibilities first. And like my priorities went down the crapper. they really did. So being able to pick up and go to the gym at any hour that I wanted was out of the question. And then even when sometimes I did have the time to go to the gym, I'd probably be too exhausted to make it work and to go. So how I ended up getting my shit together was I realized I don't need to be perfect. And one thing that really helped me was I was actually watching a video by Stan Efferding where he talked about 10-minute walks. And he was using this as an example of like being more efficient with your cardio and the metabolic benefits of 10-minute walks. And there was actually a university study done on this down in New Zealand where they looked at the benefits of just 10-minute walks. Like 10 minutes can have a massive improvement in your blood sugar metabolism, have a massive improvement in your body's ability to digest and utilize food. I mean, just like as small as that is, that can have an impact. So I was starting to think, well, what if I applied that to other areas, like in terms of even the strength training? So instead of saying like, I don't have time to do cardio or I don't have time to go to the gym, like, do I have 10 minutes? Right? That's what I would do. I would say, like, do I have 10 minutes? And this was a game changer for me. So what I did, for one, when it came to cardio, I literally started doing those 10-minute walks. So instead of thinking that, hey, I had to have like 45 minutes or an hour of dedicated cardio time, it was like, no, I can just go for a little mini 10-minute walk. Right? So like on my lunch break, right? After I had lunch, I just haul on my sneakers, go for a little walk around the block. Boom. That was it. After dinner, right? Haul on my sneakers, go for a little walk around the block. Or, I mean, if you're out somewhere, you can go for a walk or do something. I mean, if you have access to cardio machines, take advantage of that. In my case, like I've got some exercise equipment here at home, so I would utilize that. And I would make use of these little blocks of time that I had throughout the day, like time that you wouldn't normally consider, but I would make use of it. So, for example, if I was going to watch a YouTube video and like I seen, okay, the video is 10 minutes long, instead of sitting on my ass or sitting on the couch or sitting at my desk and watch the video, I would go and take my phone, get on my elliptical machine, and I would do 10 minutes of cardio while I watch my 10-minute video. So I would be getting 10 minutes of exercise, and it didn't take any extra time because I was going to watch the darn video anyway. Like right now, hopefully there's somebody actually doing this, but if you're smart, you could be doing this while you're doing some exercise. So like if you have some cardio at home, or maybe you're at the gym and you're watching this on YouTube or whatever, like you could literally be watching this while doing cardio at the same time. So, I mean, you could be multitasking in that sense. And instead of sitting down, on your duff, no exercise. So, I mean, you can make use of time like that. And that's one thing I did. Another thing, like if I wanted to watch a show on Netflix, well, I was going to watch that show on Netflix while I was doing cardio. So like little opportunities like that, I'd make use of. Other things as well is like when it came to the strength training, instead of thinking you got to do like a full-on proper workout, like if I had a few minutes, I would do exercise. Like how long does it take you to hit the floor and do a set of push-ups? Like literally a minute. So like if I had a couple minutes, I would like hit the floor and do a set of push-ups. And, even alternating like push-ups and squats. Right? I mean, if I'm going to give you a workout right now, if you have 10 minutes, do a set of push-ups, do a set of squats, rest for 30 seconds or a minute, and then repeat, right? Set of push-ups, right? So push-ups to failure, set of squats until your legs start to burn. I mean, like if it's probably not going to be true failure, but it's going to be to the point where you get muscular fatigue, and then rest for 30 seconds to a minute and repeat. And just do that nonstop for 10 minutes. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to get a killer workout, and you're going to be like, holy shit, like this, it took 10 minutes, like hardly any time at all. And you're going to be pumped from head to toe, right? Your chest, your legs, everything's going to be pumped. And I mean, it took no time and no exercise equipment. I mean, if you do have exercise equipment like rubber bands or dumbbells or something like that, then you can make use of that as well. If you got home gym equipment, even better. But like, it doesn't have to be anything great. Like if you've got 5 or 10 minutes, like you can bang out a few sets of an exercise in 5 minutes, right? Like little opportunities, little bursts of exercise done throughout the day. That's how I was able to make it work. Instead of having these dedicated, hey, I have to have 2 hours to go to the gym, I made it work by these little mini bursts of exercise throughout the day. So little sets of push-ups, sets of body weight squats, sets of like resistance bands, rows and curls and shoulder work, and just little bursts throughout the day when I had some downtime. And same thing with the cardio. That's how I made it work. And I didn't put a limit on it, or I didn't quantify it saying like, well, I have to do X amount or anything like that. It was just like, do I have time right now? I'll take advantage of that time right now. And I just took it day by day, moment by moment. And I always operated from the mindset that something is better than nothing, right? Because once you start quantifying it and putting numbers on it, then you'll start justifying that and think like if I told you, okay, well, the minimum effective dose is 30 minutes a day, then you're going to say, well, if I don't have 30 minutes, I don't have time. But if I just keep saying something is better than nothing, then you might say, well, I've got 5 minutes. Like, hey, I got 5 minutes before my next appointment or my next meeting or something like that. I can go for a little 5-minute walk, around the building, right? Or something like that. Or, I got a few minutes. I can do some push-ups or I can do some squats, right? I got something. Like, it doesn't have to be much. And if you give yourself permission to do these little bits of exercise throughout the day, it'll make a huge difference, and it compounds over time. I mean, in and of itself, it's not going to make a difference. And that applies to any workout. Like, even if you dedicated 2 hours of time to go to the gym and follow the best structured, laid out program written by Mr. Olympia himself, you're going to look the same tomorrow. Like, one workout, one day of healthy eating, you're still going to be the same shape tomorrow, right? It's not going to make a difference in the moment. But if you compound it day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, it's going to make a difference. Same applies with this, right? If you do a set of push-ups and a set of squats today, it's not going to mean anything to tomorrow. But if you did that day after day, week after week, month after month, it's going to compound and make a big difference. And that's what I did myself. And I just took advantage of these little blocks of time, right? I mean, yeah, if I could go to the gym and do a proper workout, I'd still do that. But at least I was doing something. I was always doing something, even if it was minuscule, even if it was embarrassingly small, not worthy of posting on social media, say, hey, I killed it at the gym today. If I did a set of push-ups and then a set of squats, or I walked 10 minutes around the block, I'm not going to go on social media and post about it, but I did it. And that was the thing that really made the difference for me, right? Was just giving myself permission to do something over nothing. And once you make that a habit and you realize that all these little opportunities you have throughout the day, I mean, it's going to compound and you'll be amazed at the difference it can make. All right. I actually made a video about that. If you do a search on YouTube for Lee Hayward mini workouts, you'll see a video where I basically just rehash what I just told you there in different words. Craig is joining in. What's your opinion of the 12-week challenges that usually come about in January? Always wanted to finish one, but usually fail. All right. I mean, if a challenge gets you off your ass and doing something, I'm all for it. And the thing is, you got to realize all these different challenges and stuff like that, like, these were popular. Like, I mean, the before and after 12 weeks / 90-day transformation challenges. I mean, like, a lot of fitness companies really made these popular. And if somebody makes an incredible transformation in 12 weeks, one, they were probably in decent shape to begin with, or they were in shape before, or they didn't have that much to lose to get in shape. So meaning, again, they were in decent shape to begin with. Like, if somebody is overweight and out of shape, like, I mean, you got 100 pounds to lose, like you've never worked out or you haven't worked out in months or years, you're not going to make a life-changing transformation in 12 weeks. I don't care how hard you work. I don't care what supplements you take. I don't care if you take all the hormones and performance-enhancing drugs. Like, you're not going to make a life-changing transformation from 0 to hero in 12 weeks. Now, you can make progress in 12 weeks. Don't get me wrong. You can make great progress, but it's probably not going to be the end destination goal progress in 12 weeks. Now, 12 months or longer, yeah, now we're talking, right? Because it takes time for progress to happen. But as far as the whole idea is these challenges, I'm all for it, because if that's what it takes to fire up somebody's motivation and get them off their ass and start moving, then by all means. The only thing I'm not a fan of is, what do you do after the challenge is over? Because a lot of people will set these short-term goals. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with short-term goals, but you need to have a bigger vision. Like what comes after the short-term goal? Because if you only have the short-term goal, then very often once you achieve the short-term goal, then you end up resorting back to the old habits. And I use a prime example, like in bodybuilding. A lot of people have the goal of, I want to compete in a competition, right? I want to do a show, and they'll do it. They'll get in shape. They'll get ripped six-pack abs, get in the best shape of their life, compete in the competition. And then you run into them like 6 months or a year later, and it's like, what the hell happened to you, right? Like you were that guy who stepped on stage, and now you're 50 pounds overweight and got a gut hanging over your belt. Like, what happened? Because they hit the short-term goal. They competed, right? They got the pictures. They got their trophy in their handshake, and they're, we're able to post on social media that they did it, and all their friends and family said, yay, good for you, congratulations. So the short-term goal is met, and now what, right? What do I do next? Then they go back to their old habits, start eating the same as they were, exercising the same as they were, and just basically undo all the progress they made. You see this in other sports as well. Like a lot of times people will set a goal, like I want to run a marathon. So they'll train their ass off and they'll run a marathon. Once they run a marathon, then they quit running because the goal was to run a marathon. Once they ran the marathon, it's like, now what? Whereas you have to have a bigger vision beyond the short-term goal, right? Like, again, it's not the challenge, or it's not the competition, or it's not the marathon, or it's whatever. The goal has to be bigger than that. It has to have another phase, if you will. Like you have to see the next level and take it even bigger. Like in the example of someone running a marathon and then stopping because they ran the marathon. Well, you have to switch the goal. The goal is not to run the marathon. It is to become a runner. Or in the case of someone competing in a bodybuilding show, doing the show and then quitting, the goal is not to compete in the bodybuilding show. It is to develop your body. And that is a nonstop, never-ending goal. It's something that continues on. So that's one of the things. Like if you're using one of these short-term challenges as your motivation, that's great, but you have to think bigger. Like, what are you going to do after that challenge? What's that going to lead to? And you have to have a bigger vision for your health and your fitness and where you want to take this. And if you don't have a bigger vision, then what's going to happen is you'll do the short-term challenge. You might get in shape, see some results, and then it's going to fizzle out. Or in your case, you get motivated by the challenge, but you say you don't even finish it. So, I mean, like, you don't even have a big enough vision to even finish the 12-week challenge. So you got to think much bigger, right? Like, and this is something I see a lot. It's like, there's people, I mean, I'm picking on Craig here now because he put himself out there, but I'm not saying this as a mean thing. I'm just saying this as a tough love type of thing, if you will. I know people personally, and I can list off names and names of people who've been following my shit for 10 plus years, and they know more information about fitness and nutrition and workouts and macros and everything else than most certified personal trainers. Yet if you looked at them, you wouldn't think they worked out a day in their life because they're still fat and out of shape themselves, even though they know it all up here. Like, they've watched thousands of videos, they've read hundreds of articles, hundreds of blog posts, they can quote all the gurus, they've read dozens of diet and exercise books, yet you look at them and you're like, oh, what are you doing with all this knowledge that's up here, but it's not manifesting from the neck down, right? Like, what's going on? And you see this a lot. Like, so many people their information, they want the information, but they don't do jack shit with the information. And like, that's the difference between knowing something intellectually and actually living it and having that be part of your lifestyle. And this is where I always come back to, like, knowing what to do doesn't mean anything if you don't apply what you know. Like, information without implementation is useless. And there's a lot of people out there who have all the information, but very little implementation. And to give you an example of this one, right? This is one that I always like to use the analogy of. Imagine someone trying to quit smoking. Like, for anybody who's a smoker or who has been a smoker, it's a hard habit to break, right? Like, but think of it from the tactical side of things. Like, do you think a smoker knows how to quit smoking? Like, it's one of the easiest things in the world to do from a tactical point of view. You just stop putting cigarettes in your mouth and you're instantly a non-smoker. So the tactics are pretty simple. Yet why is it so freaking hard to do, right? Why is it so hard to stop putting cigarettes in your mouth if you're a smoker? right? Because you have that built-in conditioning and wiring and everything else. Same thing with fitness and nutrition. Like everybody knows I should eat better and I should exercise more and blah, blah, blah. Why is it so hard to actually do it, right? It comes down to your internal beliefs and stuff like that, and your vision and your why. That's ultimately what it is. Like you have to have a big enough reason why you have to be in shape versus the reasons why you're not in shape, right? And it's this balancing act. And if you really just don't care, or you don't have enough pain yet to push you, like this is one that really irks me, is people, well, it's not that bad yet, right? It's not that bad yet, right? I'm overweight, I'm out of shape, but right, I haven't had a heart attack yet, right? I'm not diabetic yet, right? I haven't had a stroke yet, so I'm not going to take action yet. Like visualize where your habits are leading you. Like if you keep going down the road you are now, like overweight, out of shape, like I got the know-how up here. I'm sitting down watching these videos and I'm watching every other Joe Blow YouTuber, and I know everything I need to do, but I'm just not doing jack shit, right? And you keep doing that and you're still overweight and out of shape. Like, where's that going to lead you in 5, 10, 15 years from now? Versus if you started taking action, even if it was small action, something's better than nothing action. Good enough, but good enough consistently action. And you just started making little bits of progress. Where's that going to lead you in 5, 10, 15 years from now? And like once you zoom out like over the long term like that, that's where it's life changing. Not like in the 12 weeks or any of that crap. Like where is it going to be in 5, 10 years from now? Like if you keep going down the path you are in 5, 10 years now, you might be dead of a heart attack or stroke or diabetic or whatever. Like, I mean, it could be serious. Whereas if you go down the path of actually taking some action and making progress, then you could be that person who's, you know, you lost 50 pounds or 100 pounds and now you're healthy and now you're active and people are looking at you like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you're one of those fit guys. What the heck? Like, that's the difference. But it takes time and you have to see that long-term vision. And this is something that you really can't get from the short-term challenges, right? So I know this is a long-winded answer to a short question, but it's a deep one. It really is. And hopefully, I'm going to shut up Brown on this one because this has really gone off the rails here. But hopefully it makes sense. Like you have to have that long-term vision of where do you want this to go. And like if you continue down the path you are now, where's that going to lead you versus if you make some subtle changes and let that compound over time. And that's where you need to look at this, right? And if you can't do it for yourself, then think of your family and friends and the people who are dependent on you. Like how is it going to impact your family if you go from being the man of the house, the breadwinner, the provider, to now you're bedridden, can't even look after yourself, can't go to work, you know, maybe you're diabetic and then you end up having to have your leg amputated because of the complications of diabetes and you can't even work anymore. So now you go from the man of the house, the breadwinner, the provider, blah, 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 to now everybody has to take care of you because you can't even take care of your own self. Like that's a big blow. Like that's a big swift kick to the balls right there, right? Do you want to go down that road and do you want to be that burden to your family? If not, then maybe it's worth taking some, proactive measures to at least reduce the risk of that happening or delay it for as long as possible, right? We don't want to be and we all know people like this. We all know people who neglected their health and fitness and became that burden, right? They're, where their family had to look after them because they couldn't even look after themselves, right? I mean, it's a sad place to be. So hopefully you don't want to be in that situation. And if you have to, then you can do it for others, right? If you can't get motivated to do it for yourself, maybe you'll be motivated to do it for others. All right. What else we got, guys? I'm going to shut up soon because we've been going for over an hour here. James is jumping in. We have John joining us. Let's see what else we got. I'm going to answer one more question. AT says it's not recommended to drink coffee at the same time you're taking creatine. Meanwhile, most pre-workout supplements have creatine, caffeine. Any explanation? Honestly, it doesn't matter. As long as you maintain adequate hydration, caffeine and creatine are not going to cancel each other out. Like the whole idea behind that is caffeine has a mild diuretic property to it, meaning you generally pee more when you're consuming caffeine, whether that's a form of coffee or caffeine supplements or whatever. And with creatine, you need to have adequate water to utilize the creatine because the water will pull the creatine into the muscle cells and stuff. And you need to have adequate water for creatine to basically do its job. You should have adequate water in your body anyway. Like creatine is like one of the smallest benefits of having adequate water. Like everything in your body needs adequate water, right? Your health and your fitness and the digestion of nutrients and just your everything. Like your body is mostly water. If you don't have adequate water, like you suffer from dehydration, like everything gets suppressed. Like your strength and exercise performance is going to be suppressed. Your immune system is going to be suppressed. Your digestion is going to be suppressed. Like everything, if you're dehydrated, nothing is working at optimal, right? It's just like your car is running low on oil. Like it ain't running properly, right? You know, I mean, it might still run, but it ain't running optimally, right? Same thing with water intake in your body. You need adequate water intake. I mean, it goes way more important than just freaking creatine. So as long as you're taking adequate water, then you got no worries. Like you can still consume caffeine in moderation. You can still supplement with creatine. It all just comes down to, are you consuming enough water? And the little kicker to let you know that you're drinking enough water, one, make sure that you're satisfying your thirst. Like if you wait until you're thirsty, it's too late. You're already dehydrated. So try and stay ahead of the water, you know, and stay on top of it so you don't get to the point where you're really thirsty. Like if you get a little mild thirst, I mean, that's okay. Like listen to your body, satisfy the thirst. But if you get to the point where you're parched and you're really thirsty, it's too late. You're already dehydrated by that point. So keep water handy. Like keep water with you everywhere you go. Like I take water with me when I go in my car. In fact, in the back seat of my car, I always keep a case of water bottles. So there's always water with me wherever I go in my car. If I go to the gym, I got water with me. When I go for bike rides, I take water with me. Like everywhere I go, I got water with me, right? So I mean, always make sure to have water with you so you can sip it regularly and stay on top of it. And then the kicker that'll let you know if you are on top of it is when you go to the bathroom to do your pee should be either light yellow or clear, like in that range. Very light yellow or clear. That's good. If your pee is dark yellow, you're dehydrated. You're not consuming enough water. So bump up your water intake. And that's my little cue to let me know if I'm well hydrated or not. Like I always keep an eye on it. And then when I'm going to the bathroom, if it's light yellow or clear, okay, I'm on track. If it starts to get a little darker yellow, I purposely got to drink more water, and I make sure that I do so. And if you keep up to date with that, that's a good cue to let you know that you're consuming enough water. Listening to your body, make sure you're drinking to thirst, and making sure that your pee stays out of the dark yellow range. And as long as you're in those, as long as you got that covered, you're good. All right, guys, I know there's a few other questions coming through, but I'm going to clue it up because it is getting late and I've done over an hour of rambling on here as it is. But hopefully you got some benefit from the video chat. And as I mentioned earlier on, I've got a special little gift that I can give every one of you who are watching this video chat right now. Shoot me an email or a Facebook message if we're friends on Facebook. And just say vitamin and mineral guide. And what I'll do is I'll personally send you a copy of that vitamin and mineral guide PDF file. It's a vitamin and minerals for athletes. And what it is it covers all the major vitamins and minerals, and it covers the best food sources for each one. So you'll get a listing of what this vitamin and mineral does, you know, the optimal dosage, as well as the best foods to ensure that you're consuming that through your natural diet. So if you want a copy of that, just drop me an email and I'll send it over to you as a bonus for tuning in to the video chat. All right, have yourself a great weekend, and I will talk to you next week, same time, same place. Take care. Over and out.